Hey everybody, this is Barry Mankin here with the Holistic Home Health Podcast. We are here in Nashville, Tennessee, and today we're actually doing a testimonial from a client that we have served here in Nashville for the past 3 years. So we've got a great story for you. I want to welcome Jim Goodloe, and thank you for being here today.
Well, thank you for inviting me.
Time. Absolutely. So we're just going to have a little fun and talk about a process. We have a specific, basically scenario where they have their story that we want to share, and specifically, it's going to be about Deb, your wife, and her struggle with health issues as it relates to environmental. So. Why don't we just talk about maybe a brief history
Sure.
of what you guys, how even before I came into the picture, what kind of ponied this up?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
So Debbie and I have been married over 40 years.
Yeah.
And off and on throughout that, she has struggled with allergies, with sinus issues, had several sinus surgeries, and really has had to cope with allergies being a part of her life. And in fact, at one point years ago, a physician said that of all the people in the world that are allergic to mold, you're in the top 10%.
Oh, wow.
And so, that's something that sort of has remained with her and thinking about, her health and so forth. She started seeing a functional nurse several years ago. And in the process of that, the subject of mold came up, and we decided that we wanted to have our house checked for mold, and she recommended you. In the meantime, my wife had to have some surgery done. And in the recovery part, she was sleeping next to a vent. And we've been sleeping next to that vent all this time, but it really hadn't affected her. For whatever reason, this time she got very sick with a respiratory thing in the post-surgical phase. And so we got beyond that. You came in, tested our house for airborne mold. Help me with the name. It's the one that's really common.
You mean just an air test?
The mold starts with an A.
Oh, the type of mold.
Yeah, type of mold.
Oh. Was it an Aspergillus?
Yes, that's Aspergillus.
Okay, yeah.
I never can remember Aspergillus. Yeah. And that's what she's allergic to. Now, Aspergillus is a very, very common mold. You came in and tested our house, and guess what was the highest register of Aspergillus was right next to her head. Yeah. And she'd been sleeping there. And so, that was really what started this whole process for us. You came in, tested the house. We had it treated. We tested it again. We had it treated again.
Yeah.
We went through a process of trying to address the household, the airborne mold that was in the house. And we'd never done anything like that before because, quite frankly, we didn't know that it was something you needed to worry about. And we've added a number of different treatment protocols. So we've got several different air filters. We've got several different air cleaning devices in our house. We put some in our duct system. To the point now that we've actually had someone come into our house not too long ago and say, your house is the cleanest smelling house I've ever been in.
Well, I appreciate it. That's a good synopsis of how the process can get bookended and work, and have some, which is, one of the reasons that you're here is for that testimonial is to say, we're on the other side of this.
Right.
Which is, I'm so happy for you both, really am, because, you guys were going through the ringer with it. You were suffering right, through this process.
But it's, and this is an important comment, it's success is not a destination. It's a journey. We will always be mold conscious.
Yeah.
And, we will always be on the lookout for things in the air or things that we see on furniture, which is another experience that we had, or leaks that we didn't think were bad that turned out to be pretty serious. And so, thanks to you and the people you've introduced us to, we have a very high awareness level of mold and the importance of staying on top of it and ahead of it.
Yeah. Let's back up to the beginning again and just kind of let's dissect that a little bit more. And as far as medical history, we had allergens. We had just severe allergies to a point that she needed some surgeries. Is there like a specific diagnosis or anything that the doctors gave, or do they call it something, or was it just a matter of sensitivities?
More sensitivity.
Okay. All right.
And, she's allergic to a lot of the things that are in the air in Middle Tennessee. I suffer from it too, just not quite as to the degree that she does. But I'm not allergic to mold. And so that wasn't an issue for me.
Yeah.
It was an issue for her, and that was the tipping point.
Did you understand at the beginning, that other than seasonal allergies, did you understand at the beginning that mold was such a prevalent factor in her health at that time, or did you just think of outside mold? You weren't thinking like exposure in your home.
We had no clue
Yeah,
that mold was something we needed to be concerned about.
yeah, and indoor air quality and all of that.
We knew she was allergic to mold. The allergist had told her she was allergic to mold.
Yeah,
But also said there wasn't anything you can do about it because mold is so common and there's so many different variations of it.
yeah, and so many people, I think, until they go through a process like this and they have the awareness to where the pain points come up, you have to start digging. You have to start educating yourself and getting good people around you to be able to help you through that process. Most people, I would say, are very similar. Really don't understand. Sometimes the other thing that we find is it's the toxic load in somebody builds up over time. That can happen as well. And maybe when they were younger, they had no problems, and then all of a sudden they have all these allergies, or they have all of these symptoms, and they've just built up with that toxic load, if you will. That can happen too. One thing that we've talked about in the past that we akin that to is the toxic load in the person and the toxic load in the house, and we treat them the same. And so that bridge between what you're experiencing in the body and then being able to shift to say, okay, where's the sources of this? How do we bring our exposure down to really open up to look at your house because you have a beautiful home. I mean, it's a really, really nice house, and it's not a small house either. So when you're thinking in terms of you have a clean house, as long as everything's clean, you think everything's fine, which most people think the same way. But we're looking at all the tiny things that we can't see, right?
Right.
And that's where I think that education comes in.
And making you think of things that we wouldn't necessarily think was a problem. And for instance, as you know, I've got a woodworking shop in the basement.
Yeah.
And whereas I thought I was dealing with the dust aggressively, I was from a normal woodworker's perspective, I had no vent to the outside. And you would not let me rest until I got a vent to the outside where anytime a light is turned on in the shop, there's exhaust pulling whatever dust isn't collected that's floating in the air, pulling it outside.
Yeah, and that's a factor. So when we're looking at the particulates, we measure those, right? And we would see the potentials just from the construction standpoint because we had an open ceiling and we had pathways. And your master bedroom was right above
that. And an interesting thing, sort of an aside, we've got a tankless hot water heater in a room adjacent to the shop. And one day it quit working. And this was several years ago. And so we called in the plumber, and he looked at it, and he said, well, your filter is clogged. And I said, what do you mean my filter is clogged? And he said, well, anytime we have a hot water heater adjacent to a shop, a woodworking shop, we see the filters get clogged with floating dust from the wood. So it was making its way over to my water heater. I didn't even know it. I had no clue that even with my aggressive dust removal process,
you had a great system there.
it was still making its way over to another room. So it made perfect sense that now, okay, yeah, I understand. I got to get this stuff outside the house every way that I possibly can.
Yeah. It's so interesting, the things that we can't see, and the way air pressure works and air currents in a house work, how that stuff is available. I always tell people that you're the filter, right? And when you have signs of things, whether that's what we call ghosting or, different ways that could present itself, or in an appliance like that where you have a filter that gets clogged, it starts to make you think, okay, how did that get there? I thought this was taken care of. Because that unit that you have was very expensive, and it's a nice unit that you have that filters out those particulates, but it only goes to a certain micron level. And so when we started talking micron and sizes, that's when I think we started to open up to think, okay, what do I not know about this?
Well, interestingly enough, now whenever they come in to do their annual service on the water heater, I ask them to check the filter. Hadn't been a problem since I put in that exhaust system.
All right. That's great. That's great. Well, that adds to, the potentials for allergens. That adds to other contaminants that may be on those particulates. And again, goes to sizing. And the other thing that we learned is that once you get past 2.5 microns, the body can't filter all that. And those are the tiny things that subsequently your other filter doesn't get through. So everything from generally 2.5 and smaller are affecting that space, right? And understanding that, it's like, okay, how do we get better? So there's dilution and there's other filtration. There's different ways to do that. But that was just one issue in the house. We had several different issues in the house. So let's talk about all the different events. Just list out, at first we had this. So we have the existing, which is a systemic issue that the house had. Then from a water standpoint, your first event, I think, was the laundry room?
So, yes, and that was actually before we moved in, bought the house.
Oh, okay.
The previous owners had a leak in their laundry room. They took care of it. Sometime after we moved in, I saw some moisture where I didn't think there could possibly be any moisture. So I called my insurance company. They came in and looked at it, went under the house, went to a section that's accessible, but no, not a place that I visit very often,
right?
Maybe even never. But they found that there was a leak in that location, residual from the previous. It probably hadn't been the piping hadn't been fully done correctly, and the moisture was there, the mold was there. Called in, the insurance company recommended a remediation company. They came in and took care of it. Only they didn't fully take care of it. And it wasn't until you came in and looked at it that said, well, here's a problem. I see black mold growing right here. Granted, you fixed the water source that caused the problem, but it's still there, and it needs to be removed. They didn't do it right the first time. And so company that you recommend came in and took care of it, and hasn't been a problem since. So that was one of the water issues that we had. We had another water issue where just a random pipe, a joint, started leaking. This is the one outside my son's bedroom. And again, a black spot appeared on the ceiling. And being the smart guy that I am, I thought, I'll fix that, and I painted over it. Not exactly the most effective way to handle something like that.
Well, paint kills mold, obviously, right?
Exactly. Cover it up, and it doesn't exist.
That's a brand, by the way. That's not.
And so we had to have that dealt with and have that section of the ceiling removed. We had an event just a little over a year ago we had a relative staying in our basement, and my wife was down there with her.
Finished basement.
Finished
right?
basement,
Yep.
fully finished, and noticed that there was some spots on a lampshade. And when they started looking even more, there were spots on most of the lampshades. Mm-hmm. Unfortunately, my wife scratched at one, not knowing what it was.
The sensitized person is...
The sensitized person,
Yes.
and she got sick.
Yeah.
And had a respiratory issue as a result of that. So, you come in, you do a full-blown test. We end up having to get rid of a lot of furniture. We had to get rid of basically all the lampshades that were in the basement.
Carpet.
Pulled up the carpet. Mm-hmm. Went into one of the bedrooms, and off of the bedroom, which was the closet was just a storage closet for us. Mm-hmm. And we started pulling stuff out of that, and we found mold growing on basically everything down there that was not metal.
And this is a conditioned space.
Yes. So
I mean, it's a nice basement. Huge ceilings, plenty of airflow, right? You would think.
We had mold growing on furniture down there, and it's not that we keep our house clean, but if you don't look for certain things, you don't see it. Mm-hmm. And we had mold growing on a sofa, the back of a sofa, which you didn't see because it wasn't out in front of you. We had have an antique desk that belonged to my grandmother, and on the back side of that desk there was mold growing all over it. And so you come in, you do your testing, and we bring in this company that you referred, which are wonderful guys, by the way, and tore out a bathroom because of the problems that we had. A legacy problem that we had that we didn't know was there, that was found during this review. And so we ended up pretty much redoing our basement as a result of this. And most of it came about because, and this is a really important thing that everybody ought to be aware of, in the summertime, don't ever put your fan in the on position.
Amen.
A well-meaning HVAC tech suggested that to me, and so we did it. And that was the root of the problem for us, is that, and you can explain the technical reasons why you don't want to do that, but basically it made our basement very humid. Mm-hmm. Not that we noticed it, we weren't down there that much, but it made a receptive environment for mold. All because we were pulling in unconditioned air and letting the mold started growing.
Absolutely. And that's, if we count it up, we have the laundry that was basically twice, before you and after you. Well, 3 times actually, because the guys after you still didn't do it right. So we have that laundry room that was several times, and the area surrounding it. We have the relative humidity was high in the basement. That was its own issue. We had an issue at the bathroom sink that was found during that process. So that's another one. The other was, I think you had we were looking at some outside influences too, like some pipes were clogged, and we were trying to get drainage around the outside of the house taken care of so that it didn't add to anything as it relates to hydrostatic pressure or something like that.
I now own a moisture meter.
Amen. There you go.
For our basement.
That's right.
And I use it.
Exactly. And then we had some issues with ducts and the area at the wood shop. So we had a lot of different scenarios in different locations, and then the leak.
Right.
That's so like 5 or 6 issues here going on.
And one thing about the ducts, one of the allergists that Debbie had seen had mentioned the ducts being a possible source of allergens, but said don't clean them, because all you do is stir up stuff, and you make a bad situation worse. So we thought about cleaning our ducts, but no, we don't want to do it because it's, will create more problems than it solves. You come in, and one of the first things you say after you look at our ducts and determine that there's problems in our ducts is having them cleaned. And when we say, well, our allergist said don't do that, you stress the importance of doing it correctly. There's a way to clean ducts, and then there's the right way to clean ducts.
Yeah. Here's what happens a lot, and we talk about this all the time. We've actually had some functional doctors here that we've interviewed, and we're so big on building a bridge between the medical community and the environmental community. That's one of our passions, because when information like that comes from the medical community to tell people what to do in their environment when they have no clue about the environment and how to manage a home, how to maintain a home from a perspective of environmentalists, to where we're measuring everything, just like they're measuring the body. So one of my pet peeves is when they give advice on what to do in your home. And I'm like, well, shouldn't you ask me about that? And then I always go back to them and I say, well, I don't tell your patients what to do with their body. I mean, I have ideas. I know what I do for me, but that's your patient, right? So do you want me to tell them what to do with their blood work panel? No. So it's the same, and at least in our mind, right? So we want to have a good bridge for people so that when they're going to get advice, they're going to say, well, let's talk to the people that do that.
Well, and I think it's important that this functional nurse that Debbie was seeing understood that.
Yeah.
And when she began to get a good picture of what Debbie was dealing with, and suggested that we have the house evaluated for mold, and then treated appropriately for mold, another conversation in and of itself.
Yeah.
And then you learn of a word that I'd never heard of, mycotoxins.
Yeah, that's a whole
And how you deal with mycotoxins in addition to dealing with the mold that is present.
Yeah, it gets very deep. And we've had those discussions here with different people. And if you haven't looked at this before, the mycotoxins are the defense mechanisms of certain waterborne molds. Typically, there's also some naturally occurring, at least in our climate. But specifically in their situation, those are potentially prevalent. So whenever we're dealing with things like Stachybotrys or Chitomium or those types of molds that typically are associated with water damage, Aspergillus, some of the Aspergillus, you have the potential for those defense mechanisms to exude that toxin basically in the home. And so, and how to manage that is a whole different conversation, which we've talked about. But for people that are just coming into this, from the layman's terms, it's like, what is that? What are all these different? So your spectrum of awareness is now just expanding, and you're like, well, how far does this rabbit hole go down? I can't imagine.
And we
what
had,
you guys were going through.
We had no clue. That it was something that we needed to be concerned about or understand, and then we come to find out that there's really, and this was eye-opening to me, there's a whole industry geared to addressing this issue in homes and buildings.
Yeah.
I mean, multi-layered, and I really appreciate the fact, and with you, you diagnose, you don't treat.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's I spent a career in healthcare and dealing with businesses and so forth. And so, I'm leery of someone that says, well, you got a problem and it's going to cost you $10,000 for me to fix it, as opposed to you saying, you've got a problem, let me recommend some people that can help you.
Yeah, absolutely. And they don't exchange money on top of that. Like, there's no kickbacks. A lot of industries, it's like, hey, thanks for the referral. And so it looks like it on paper, but our name is everything. And the people in our network, their name is everything.
Yeah.
And so we just align ourselves with good, reputable, integrity-based businesses. And that way we can trust that, hey, my buddy Jim's going to get taken care of, and I don't have to worry about him.
And there's a checks and balance.
And there's a check and balance,
Because you come in and diagnose the problem for us. The company came in and fixed the problem. You came in and checked their work, and this is not saying anything bad about them, but you remember the last one, they had to come back 3 times before you said free and clear.
Yeah, that's a hard job.
And there was no additional money. It was, you pay us for this work and we will get it done correctly. Barry will check to make sure it's done correctly, and if it's not, we'll come back. And this last time, it just took a little bit more effort before you declared that basement room free and clear.
And one of the things was that bathroom cabinet. That's when it surfaced. It's
Yeah.
like, well, why isn't this clearing? There's something going on. And sure enough, there was. So like that opened up another can of worms, but we got to the root of another issue that we
didn't know existed
through that process, because I tell people all the time, the numbers don't lie. And when I just deal with numbers and say, okay, that shouldn't be here, why is this not? Because we know the process is working everywhere else, but if we have an isolated anomaly with numbers still, there's a reason, right? Whether that's a pathway or whether that's just, containment wasn't done or whatever the case is. But in their case, they had another source, and that source has to be dealt with. So, and that's how the process, again, works. That's what I tell people all the time. It's sometimes, because we started, I think we talked earlier in October of 22. 3 years. And now, it didn't take 3 years to deal with the one problem. We've had 5 or 6 different issues go on, but we've had a relationship through that process. And it is a journey, to your point earlier. But you know who to call. And whenever something comes up, now you're only dealing with isolated incidents instead of kind of like the body. Like when you go to the doc the first time and you haven't been to the doc in 10 years or whatever, you're going to have multiple things going on, because of the maintenance.
Yeah. And we had a couple of legacy things from the previous owners that, we ended up having to deal with, but we had some of our own occurrences.
Yeah.
And, someone may say, well, gosh, Jim, you just had a lot of bad luck with this house. I'm not sure our house is any different from any other house in that regard. It's there. You may not know it. You likely won't see it or smell it, but I would encourage everybody to have their house tested. First of all, have your ducts cleaned. And
you got to get them in a row
clean,
first.
Correct. Well, you order it, but from my perspective, if you haven't had your ducts cleaned in a while, have them cleaned.
Yeah.
Because there's going to be stuff in there that probably shouldn't be there.
Yeah.
Number 2, have your house tested. It's not that expensive, and you can be assured that you have a house that is clean and not creating any issues for you that you might be attributing to something else. And to me, that ought to be a basic that you set up the time frame, but when you move into a house, do it. And then every 2 or 3 years or something like that? Do you need to have it redone?
And if you just want to check in and just check things out to see if anything's happened. If something has happened from a water damage standpoint since then, and you think it was dealt with appropriately or not, all those issues come up. Things happen. But if you just want an air quality check to see how things are going, absolutely check in every few years. We can do that. And the ducts, we tell everybody every 5 to 7 years.
Is that what it is? Okay.
Yeah. Normal living conditions, right? Unless there's been, again, an event or something has happened, there's no reason for that. If they do it well on the front end and you're doing the preventative things to keep it clean, it should stay fairly clean, right? So, when you were talking about that process, this is where I think it's huge for people to understand. And I appreciate the encouragement for people to get their houses tested and all that. Obviously, I'm biased with that. That's what I do. But here's how this happens. Most people don't know, which is what you were saying,
right,
what they don't know.
Right.
And until their toxic load, if you will, builds up in their body and there's a pain point to where they have an immune response, chronic inflammatory response, and they have this pain point to where they're suffering. By then, their load is here, and their body has to come down from that and get cleared and cleaned and detox. The house, if that is the actual source of that problem, the house has to go through a process, and that takes a long time to balance this temple and this temple. And so why not? Again, it's no different than preventative maintenance for the body. Preventative maintenance for the house is diagnostic and solution.
You do it for your car.
Yeah, we change the
Does
oil.
it make sense then that you ought to do it for your house too?
I'm a huge proponent of it, obviously, but I appreciate that. If more people were preventative, we would have less pain points and less health issues, I believe.
One of the things that one of the solutions that you encouraged us to do was to buy a small HEPA filter air purifier for our bedroom, and we keep it in the bedroom running 24 hours a day. It's small enough that when we go on trips, unless we're flying in a plane, we take it with us and put it in the hotel rooms.
Yeah.
And there's a sensor there that you can look at to see how hard the unit is working. And we'll take it into a hotel room, set it up, turn it on. And whereas at our house, it's usually running in the sensor's running 10 to 12, 10 to 15 level. We'll put it in the hotel room. It'll register 500.
Oh yeah.
for a little while, and then it'll gradually come down. But it's amazing how dirty the air is in some of those places.
Absolutely, and it's all kinds of things on that air.
Yeah.
Right. So whatever that is, whatever biological there is. Let's talk about how we started attacking things, because we started out just with a baseline assessment, which we're usually measuring the air to start with. That's a controversial subject in my community, and a lot of people, I think, say that that's not even a valid way to get to their problem. It is, in our mind, it's part of a process. We believe that is the main pathway to exposure that somebody has. Now, it's a moment in time. It's trying to capture air in proximity, right? So how we do it matters. So it's not the what, it's the how. I tell people all the time. And understanding the limitations as well as the expectations out of that diagnostic process. So we would come in. We usually start there just to see if something's obvious. In your case, there were some obvious things in certain locations which correlated, because the problem was at a point that things were off-gassing, they were floating around, and you had mold sporulating, right? Because it was still active. And you had pathways, so it was still coming. So we were able to at least hone in on that and look at the potentials. Through that diagnostic process, we evaluated that. We do a good inspection. To me, the visual inspection is the most important part of that. And we were able to start with that first problem and then get a process started for that problem. EPS, shout out to EPS. They, I think, took care of that problem after one of the big box companies came in that the insurance companies usually bring in for restoration, not understanding the difference between restoration and remediation. They usually come in and put fans in there, dry everything out after the mold's already there. If it's within the first 3 days, you can do that. After that, you're growing things, basically. And if you're growing things, when you dry it out, you're spreading what's grown.
Yeah.
Just like a dandelion.
I had not heard that, but you've got a 3-day window once a leak starts to get it taken care of. After that, you ought to assume that there's going to be mold present.
Absolutely.
Wow. I didn't know
if
that.
you smell it, it's MVOCs.
Right. Yeah.
And that's from mold growth, right? So whether you see it colonizing or not, that's a different thing. But by the time you see that it's colonizing, if you're trying to dry that out and there's no containment built up to isolate something and put a dehu in there, as opposed to having fans moving it and just blowing the mold everywhere, getting in the ductwork, getting into other areas of the home, affecting that space. You're literally just contaminating everything in that area, which is why the antimicrobial and the wipe down and the cleaning is to be so involved, and why it's hard.
Yeah. And interestingly enough, this company that came in didn't do any containment at all. And EPS comes in behind them, and they seal off that area. And I mean, there's really very tight controls of air movement. When they came in and did it correctly, as opposed to the people that came in or the company that came in before that, fixed the obvious problem,
right?
But did not provide us a complete solution.
Yeah. And we test the wood. And if that wood isn't clean
Right.
to a point, and I see toxic mold on there, or certain concentration levels or, what have you, other than the fact that it better be dry and it better be clean.
Yeah. Something that, remediation companies come in after, water damage or something like that. And I didn't know this then. I know it now. But one of the things that I will insist once a remediation company is finished is to have an external third party and build it into the contract on the front end so you don't have to pay for it, but you choose the third party to come in and evaluate the work that they did. Not have them tell you we did a good job. Have someone else tell you that they did a good job.
Yeah. And this is where the insurance companies really need that education.
Yes, they do.
And choose to subject themselves to a process. That to me that should be. I talk to them often, and most of them don't know what they don't know.
Right.
They just know what they've learned through their process of getting accredited to be an insurance agent or an adjuster, and try to follow the process for them.
Yeah.
But if it's water damage and somebody like us, again, is not involved, it's no different than the doctors telling them what to do at the house. So often I see this happen, and it costs everybody so much more money and so much more time, plus the health benefit or the health issues that come with that. All it does is complicate the process because that process is flawed. But it's costly. So people are depending on their insurance company to take care of it. The insurance companies need to be educated from the environmentalists to say, here's how this should work. And if they don't do our process, it's going to come back around.
And most of us don't know that we need to ask for that.
Yeah.
This was a previous house, and before we got to know you, we had a roof leak. And Debbie calls me. I'm at work, and she said, we've got a waterfall in our living room that's not supposed to be there. And so I come home, take one look at it.
It wasn't a water feature.
No, it was not a water feature.
No koi pond in the house.
And so I'm panicking, operative word, I'm panicking. I called the insurance company, and they say, well, you can pick someone, or, we'll choose someone. And I literally said, I don't care who you send. I've got a problem now.
Yeah.
Fix it.
Yeah. That's the best time.
And so, did I check to make sure they knew what they were doing? No. I wouldn't have known what I was looking for anyway. Did I insist that they do a post-remediation evaluation by somebody else? No. Wouldn't have known to do that. But I had a problem I wanted taken care of like that before it got worse.
Yeah, those immediate leaks, we tell people all day, like, if the insurance company's involved and it's within the first few days and they come and bring a drying company in there, unless it's been a systemic issue, if there's an event, absolutely get them in there as quickly as possible, do their thing. I always refer to Clint Eastwood. You got to know your limitations, right? And those companies don't know their limitations. They're in business for volume, as many jobs as possible, regardless of the how. They want the what. And so they just want to come in and dry and get their check from the insurance company, right? So unfortunately, a lot of those scenarios are not as clean cut as that, to where they could get in there within the first few days, dry it up quickly, remove whatever material they have to as part of their process, contain what they can, but you're not dealing with growth typically at that point. But what can happen is that process gets delayed because by the time they find somebody or somebody's scheduled out because it's that season, there's not a lot of availability. People have been gone for a week on vacation. They come back and it's been a week already, and they find their home flooded or whatever the case is.
Or the immediate solution is, in our case, throw a tarp on it, a blue tarp on it.
Until we can get there.
Until we can get to it.
Yeah. That happens. And in that case, that's just sitting there, staying wet, getting ready to start growing things. At that point, now that process, it's a time you're literally on the clock.
Yeah.
Somebody better get here quick or we need to switch to the other guys. And it just, again, complicates that process. We have a huge job here in town that we're involved with that had water loss, that has this scenario, and they waited a good week and a half before we got out there. And now we're in the other phase. It's like, well, it's past, and I'm telling them to do the things that they should have done the first day.
Yeah.
So, but we have to contain it different now. So that's how that happens a lot. Let's, I tell you what, this is fascinating, but I think we are in a good stopping point because we got a whole part 2. You got a whole other half of the house to deal with all these other scenarios that happened. So we'll come back next week and we'll go over the second half of this process. We'll take a little break. All right.
Sounds good.
Thanks for watching, everybody. Check out part 2 here with Jim Goodloe and his testimonial. Thanks.